This computer. Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to week 5 of Beginnr. We're going to go over more data manipulation and functions. So how it's going to go is we're going to start with announcements, then we're going to go into the demo, and then into breakout rooms as always. So announcements. For those of you who are doing a C1, which stands for our Challenge 1 or Independent Project, reminder that C1s are a requirement to be able to join future club projects. If you want to join a club project, let's say the fall, you don't necessarily have to do a C1 like right now, but you should get one done before the fall. We are open to be helping people like right after the quarter ends in case you guys have more time. But again, if you want to get more involved with this, then we strongly recommend doing one. For those of you guys who are doing a C1, just a reminder of the structure, like there's a big question that you want to answer. You have a data set to answer that big question, and then you can like try to split that up into smaller sections, which is where you draw your like 3 to 4 plots, and then basically writing a story connecting the plots to your question or whatever findings you have. Any questions about C1s you can direct to Nico or me through the Slack. And then on deadlines regarding C1s, today or maximum tomorrow, Nico and I are going to reach out to you over Slack if we haven't reached out to you. For those of you who have signed up for a C1, we have either already reached out or we will reach out very soon to schedule a meeting time. So please reply to us as soon as possible over Slack. This is week 6, I believe. So in 2 to 3 weeks time, you will be meeting with Jody and her data journalism team. Jody is a person who is in charge of overseeing that your C1s transform into like a data journalism piece. So she will be working closely with you, especially during the last weeks of the quarter. And then our deadline for a first draft to be sent to Jody is June 6th. That is the Sunday after week 10. So that gives you a couple of days to like be free of school. And then the final draft after you send that one is the Sunday after that, so June 13th. And we will be holding beginner graduation on the week of June 14th, date to be announced, in time to be announced. Graduation is part of beginner culture. We send money to people who finish Beginnr on time to be able to buy food and just have a cool time together. Great. So that's our announcements. Let me move to the demo and make this super quick. Today we're gonna go over several new functions which are part of the deep layer package, which is part of Tidyverse. I strongly believe that if you just load like library Tidyverse, you should get everything inside deep layer because deep layer is a sub-library of Tidyverse. So yeah, you're gonna be fine either way. So we're gonna use the built-in Star Wars dataset, which is built into Tidyverse, to learn about select, arrange, and rename, which are 3 different functions, as well as count and left join. So all this is gonna be like amazingly useful for your C1s. Just a reminder that you're probably gonna have all the skills to do a C1 during like week 8 or week 7 of this course, so like in 2 or 3 weeks time. So don't worry about like not being able to do everything you want at the moment. You're gonna get there. Great. So let me start with select. Select basically, if I do a chunk with the Star Wars data set and I print it out, it's gonna look like this, right?
Hey Phil, I don't think you're sharing your screen yet.
Oh, I'm very thank you. I'm so sorry. Yeah, Lance, I think you raised your hand also. Or is that for that or not?
Yeah, it was just for that.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is the Star Wars data set. I'm very sorry. We read in Tidyverse. And so Star Wars is a data set within Tidyverse, so I don't have to read anything outside this package. I just have to like type it in. Oh, also Nico says fun fact yesterday was the yearly Star Wars holiday, May the 4th. Great. Great. I also have another question about C1 signups. If you want to sign up for C1, just like Slack me or message me over Slack and we'll find a time. Okay, so this is our Star Wars data set going back. And let's say that we are only interested in this column called height. So if we only want to show that column, we do pipe it into a select function and give it the argument of the column name we want, in this case, select only height. And as you can see here, this table transforms into this smaller table that only contains the height column. Imagine if I want to select more columns, I can do that within the same select statement by separating my column names with commas, as here. I'm only getting the ones that I selected and in the order that I selected them in, so like first height, then mass, excuse me, etc., etc. However, that statement is not going to save. So for example, if I print Star Wars again, so I have two tables here. Table on the left is the one where I selected the variables I was interested in. Table on the right is Star Wars being printed. Like first, whatever is on the top prints on the left, and whatever is at the bottom prints on the right in that order. However, you can see here that Star Wars still has a name column, which I did not select here. What is the problem? The problem is that I'm not saving my selected table into a new variable. In this case, here in the next chunk, I save whatever I did here into body. And then if I print body, then I am gonna be able to see whatever I saved. Cool. Any questions up to this point? Okay. Aside from selecting by the name of the variable, you can also select by the position that the column is in the Star Wars data set. So for example, this is a Star Wars data set. Imagine I want to select everything from height up until, let's say, eye color or birth year. So in this case, name is column 1, height is column 2, and then 3, 4, 5, 6. So imagine I want to say everything from like height to eye color. So columns 2 up to column 6, what I would do is give the select function argument 2:6, which means select the column from position 2 to position 6 inclusive. Run that, and there we go. Great. Or an alternative to the select function is using select but with starts with. Starts with basically takes a name of the column and make sure that it starts with 8. So for example, in the Star Wars data set, I have height that starts with 8. I have hair color. I have homeworld. Okay, so I would expect those three would start with an H to be printed out. And there we go. Those three variables that start with an H are there. I think there's also a function for ends with, if that makes it any easier. Great. Any questions?
Did you quickly, Phil? She had a great question about how you would open into a separate tab. Could you show how you would assign, let's say, a subset of the data set, such as body, and then click on body within the environment to show how it pops up in a new tab?
Sure. So imagine I had never run this chunk again. Let me run this. I'm selecting all these 5 or 6 columns from the Star Wars data set, and then I have it as a variable called body, right? If I look to the top right here in the environment on my screen, I see that there is a table called body. In this case, I can just click on body and it's going to open a new tab for me, which contains exactly those 5 or 6 variables that I saved. Any other questions? Okay, sounds good. For iterating this, which is super important, aside from like just getting the columns that you need, you can also rearrange columns. So remember that the order in which the columns appear is gonna be determined by the order in which you set them in the select function call. So if I say that the first column is gonna be height, then the first column that I actually get in body is gonna be height, and so on in the order that I specify. So one purpose of select is to like actually get the columns you want. Another purpose is to reorder the columns. What else? A third purpose is to drop variables. How would you do that? By writing, for example, Star Wars, and let's say I want to drop the name function. So I do select and I would do minus name. So I drop the name column, sorry. And here I have everything except the name column, which would be to the left. So that's the third purpose. And yep, that's about it for select. Any other questions? Cool. Okay, next function is going to be arrange, which is basically like using sort in Excel, sorting data set or sorting rows based on a particular variable. So in this case, let's say that I want to find the tallest characters in Star Wars. So I'm going to arrange the Star Wars data set by height. Note that the order in which the columns appear does not change. What does change is that the shortest character comes first, and then we move from shortest to tallest. So I'm sorting by height increasing, like from the shortest to the tallest. What if I want to do it the other way? if I want to sort from largest to smallest, then I can just use the descending function and pass it an argument height. So instead of doing a range argument height, I would do a range, and then inside the range, I'd do descending argument height, which basically turns the other way around. So I start with the tallest character and it moves down in height. Any questions about that? Okay, you can also arrange by multiple variables. In this case, you want to arrange by sex and then by height. Since this is increasing, we are getting female first and male next, since it goes in like alphabetical order. And then we're getting height. So we're getting all the females grouped together first. And within the females, we are getting their height in increasing order. So what this does is arrange first takes the first column that you're giving it, in this case, sex, arranges based on sex, and then within that sex, it's going to arrange based on height from like in an increasing order. So first it's going to look at the column that comes first and then arrange on the column that comes after. Questions about this? Okay, third function is going to be rename, the last major function here, which as its purpose tells us, it just changes the name of a column. So for example, imagine that we want to rename the column that is called eye color, and we want to call it eyes. So we just run this, and instead of eye color, it's going to say eyes. Just for like syntax wise, it'd be rename and then new name equals old name. So in this case, the old name is eye color, the new name is eyes, and this new name is what we see in the table. So imagine that we want to see the ages of all the characters in the data set. And we want to create a new column called the height of all the characters, and like use that name instead of height. So instead of height, and let me open this table. Instead of height, I'm getting a column called the height of all the characters. This, however, is a bad name. Why? Because it has spaces instead of underscores, and it has capital letters. The way we write variables is in snake case. So like lowercase and with underscores between the words. So whenever like I have something like this is not going to be easy to work with, because whenever I want to access that name, imagine that I want to arrange by the height of all the characters, and I write this function call right here in this chunk. I'm going to get an error. It says that there's an unexpected symbol. The unexpected symbol here is that I have a space between the and height, and R is not going to understand it. So how do I change that error? I just change it by whenever I have any spaces between words and the variable names, I just put like, I think this is called a tilde or an accent or a backwards accent, but you put this backwards accent here to surround the name of the column, and then this works. Just to avoid those bad names, because you're going to have to use these signs. So remember to always write your names in snake case, and if you find a name in your data that is written badly, you can just use the rename function. It's going to do it for you. Great. Here I'm changing it back to height, and then I'm selecting height from whatever I had here before. Remember that these two chunks refer to Star Wars bad name. Star Wars bad name is this, where the name of the column is the height of all characters, badly named. So it's this chunk is renaming it back to height, and then this separate chunk, since it's not saved in anything, I'm gonna go to Star Wars bad name, which is exactly this with the bad name, and I'm gonna just select that variable. Note that here the select is fulfilling two functions. The first, or two purposes. The first purpose is that it is just choosing this column, and the second purpose is that it's actually renaming the column from the height of all the characters to just height. Cool. Any questions? Okay. Great. Next one is count, which basically counts the number of rows that fulfill a certain criterion. So for example, we want to count how many different genders are in this data set. In this case, or sorry, how many different rows there are per gender. So in this case, we have these results. We can also count by different groups. So for example, we want to count the number of whatever species times like in a certain gender. So we would get, first we'd get gender on the left because it's the first argument that we give it, and then we get the species on the right. So we see all the combinations of gender and species that exist in the data set, and then we get a count for each. Questions about this? Okay. And we can, again, save this to a new table, open it right here in the environment. And note that we have gender, species, and an extra column called n. N basically holds the number of occurrences that happen in this combination of gender and species for each row. Great. Okay. Sometimes, however, the count function is not very useful, especially when you have like a very wide range of things that can happen. So imagine you have a very wide range of names. I'm getting like one occurrence for each single name. So the count is not very useful here. So I would only advise to use it when you have a limited number of different options that you can get, or a limited number of combinations. Otherwise, it's not going to be very useful to you guys. Great. And then we have our final one, which is left join. And basically what left join does is it brings together two different data sets. So like, imagine we have data set A, which is a circle, data set B, another circle, and left join puts them together into a Venn diagram. Let me just try to open this. R joins cheat sheet. Hopefully I'll find it. Okay, that's not it. Give me 1 second before I find it. Okay, we have, I'm gonna find it at some point. If you can help me out finding it, that'd be great. Okay, coming back to where we were. So left join basically brings together two data sets. I have my data set on the left, data on the right, and it basically is gonna join them. So we're actually gonna go into left join more in further sessions, but we do want to introduce you guys to how to do this. So imagine that we have a table called band members, which has the name of the person in the band and whatever band they're in. So like John Lennon for the Beatles, etc. And we have another table called band instruments, which has the name of the person and the instrument that they play. In this case, note that both tables have a common variable, which is name, right? Both have the name of the person. The difference is one has the band and the other has what instrument they play. So here, imagine that we want to join these tables into one single table that has the name of the person, the band they're in, and the instrument they play. So we do that with left join. So basically here, we are gonna join these two tables. And what we do is we put in the first table, pipe that into a left join, and then the second table, and then we join it by whatever. Let me just write the syntax for that though. So we have the table on the left, then we have left join with the table on the right, and by equals variable name. So we're joining the table on the left to the table on the right by whatever variable that is common to both tables. Just now that Nico found the cheat sheet, let me just open that. Thanks, Nico. I hope this shows.
It's not the cheat sheet, but it has this.
Okay, great.
Basically the version of the cheat sheet.
So imagine that we want to join table A, table B. They have a common variable, which is x1 here and x1 here. And we're going to use left join. So basically what left join does, it looks at the table on the left, in this case A, and it says for the first row, I'm going to join it with B, right? So the first row, for x1 I get A, for x2 I get 1, and for x3 I get T. Great, it joined that first row right here. For the second row, it's going to get B into x1, 2 into x2, and F into x3. And then it's going to take the third row, C into X1, 3 into X2. But since the table on the right does not have a C, it's just going to appear as an NA for X3, right? So basically what this does, this left join, is it takes the table on the left, keeps all the rows on the left, A, B, and C, as you can see here, and is going to try to match all these A, B, C rows to the table on the right. If the table on the right does not have any data for that, then it's going to appear as an NA. But for example, the letter D, which does not appear on the table on the left, is not going to appear in our return table. Let me just illustrate the example again through the band member stuff. So our table on the left is going to be band members. So band members has Mick, John, and Paul. And we would expect all those 3 rows to appear in our final table, right? We have Mick, John, and Paul there with their band, right? So for Mick, what this function is going to do is it's going to look up Mick in band instruments. So Mick is actually not in band instruments. So whatever instrument he plays, we did not know. It appears as an NA, not available. And it's going to go to John, look up John. Yeah, John plays the guitar, so it's going to put guitar for John. And then look at Paul. Paul plays the bass, so it's going to put the bass for Paul, right? So what it did basically was got all 3 rows from the table on the left from this one, and then try to join them to the data that corresponded to the table on the right. Any questions about this join? Okay, so something super important here is the order in which you put the tables. If we had done it the other way around, if we had put, let's say, band instruments, and then left join that with band members by the name, note that the variable name goes within quotation marks, we would have had John, Paul, and Keith, whom are in the band instruments table. And then John is matched, Paul matches, but Keith does not match because he is not in band members. So order matters here. If you put one table on the left and the other on the right, and then you switch it, it's not going to give you the same result because it's only keeping the rows that exist on the left. Cool. That being said, if there's no questions, we can move on to breakout rooms. And I can stop sharing.